Marjorie Taylor Greene 2.0 is clutching her pearls. But why? That and more on tonight's podcast. Peach Pundit, the podcast, is a conversation filled with the personal opinions of the people who are participating. Any view or opinion expressed belongs only to the person who expressed it and not with anyone with whom that person is professionally affiliated. Welcome back to another Peach Pundit, the podcast. My name is Scott Turner. That is Buzz Brockway. We're excited that you're here. Buzz, how the heck are you? You were traveling this week, weren't you?
Yes, I was in New Orleans.
Again?
For the National Summit on Education.
You're going to come back with a Creole accent. You keep going down there.
Yeah, it's so wild because I've never been there before this year. And this year I've been there 3 times. This is the year that right-leaning think tanks decided to meet in New Orleans. So
my daughter has decided for her senior trip, she wants me to take her to New Orleans. And I was like, what is there to do there? It's going to be hard on me, I guess. She's like, well, there's these ghost tours and we can go into cemetery. I'm like, no, we don't invite the devil into our lives. We're just not doing that. Maybe find a different city to go to.
I don't know if your daughter's a history buff. There is the National World War II Museum there that is fantastic.
Well, she's not that type of history buff,
Yeah.
She would. I took my kids to DC a couple years ago on what I called the Great American Indoctrination Tour. We went to Monticello and to all the dead presidents' homes. We saw the spot where 4 separate presidents died.
Mm-hmm.
Not an intentional thing on my part, but it was one of those macabre little details that,
this is what happens. Right?
Ford's Theater, you go across the street. Oh, Lincoln died here. We're standing in the room where Thomas Jefferson died. We're standing in the room where Madison died. We're standing in the room where Washington died. So, okay. I didn't mean for that to be the theme, but here we go. On tonight's podcast, it's the week before Thanksgiving, so we're thankful around here. Maybe we've got Marjorie Taylor Greene continuing her evolution towards MTG 2.0. We've got more hijinks happening over at the State Election Board. We'll tell you about that. Yeah. The Georgia Department of Education is failing one really majorly important educational topic. Jeb, ! Has praised Kemp. We'll get into that too. Democratic State Rep Esther Panitch going all out for a Republican running for her mayor over in Sandy Springs. And the Senate is looking at getting rid of the state income tax. And we're going to tell you why you shouldn't buy the doom and gloom from all the people who are trying to sell it to you. That and more when we come right back.
Peach Pundit has an anonymous Patreon who would like to invite you to learn more about the Alzheimer's Association. The Alzheimer's Association leads the way to end Alzheimer's and all other dementia by accelerating global research, driving risk reduction and early detection, and maximizing quality care and support. No one should fight Alzheimer's alone. With your help, no one will. Learn more on their website, alz.org.
This episode of Peach Pundit, the podcast, is brought to you by Americans for Prosperity Georgia. AFP wants you to know that they are launching a new 7-figure digital ad campaign calling out Senator Jon Ossoff for putting his progressive agenda ahead of Georgia families. Ossoff voted against the working families tax cut, a move that would have raised taxes and made life even less affordable for the average family in Georgia. Thankfully, those tax cuts passed, and Georgia families are saving about $2,500 per year. AFP is working hard to hold Senator Ossoff accountable and to keep focus on real solutions for Georgia families. All of our Patreons join us by heading on over to patreon.com/peachpundit. You can sign up there for any one of our tiers, starting at the $5 level. You get a little shout out at the end of our podcast here. We add you to the list of people who rock. You also get to join us in our little signal chat that is rocking daily. Lots of conversation in there today. Apparently there is some internal scandal within the Republican Party that we're not going to talk about here. But if you wanted to know more about it, you could be in that Signal chat. $5 a month. Patreon.com/PeachPundit. Buzz. We have talked about Marjorie Taylor Greene a lot lately.
Yes.
She continues to dominate the news. It was so bad that on Friday, somebody noticed that I had not been on social media in several days, and it's like, "Hey, where are you? Are you okay? We want your reaction to what's happening in the world right now, and we know you have opinions. We know I was very busy. I was finishing the last touches on a book that I've written to try to solve Georgia's runoff problem. It's more like a booklet, but it had to get to the printers on Monday, and I had to have everything finalized. Wasn't able to make any public comments, social media-wise, about Marjorie Taylor Greene. But Marjorie Taylor Greene continues her Reformation tour, where she's trying to tell the world that she's not the mean-spirited person that she has been branded as. And that's just the media. That's the political industrial complex that's given her that. She also took exception when President Trump gave her a new nickname. He now refers to her as Marjorie Traitor Greene.
I mean, he look, you got to tip your, he's good at coming up with nicknames. That is
right. But the traitor line has had real world impact on Marjorie Taylor Greene. She said, President Trump's unwarranted and vicious attacks against me were a dog whistle to dangerous radicals that could lead to serious attacks on me and my family, Greene wrote on Sunday night on Twitter, without providing details of a bomb threat that was targeted at her construction company that she has been owner of, and that her son was also a target of these death threats. I want to read something to you, Buzz, and I want you to tell me if this sounds like somebody who thinks the word traitor is dangerous rhetoric or not. This, I absolutely cannot wait to hear President Trump's speech at CPAC on Sunday. For all you traitor rhinos, prepare for a reckoning. He is the leader of the Republican Party. That was on February 23rd, 2021. This is on December 8th, 2023. Bob Good caught trashing President Trump. Bob Good was endorsed by President Trump, which is the only reason he won in 2020. Bob Good is another disloyal, fake MAGA Trump traitor. On November 5th, 2021, here are the Republicans that just voted for Biden to screw America. But 6 Democrats did more than these 13 traitor Republicans to stop Biden's fake infrastructure bill by voting no. December 14th. That same year, while Democrats and 2 traitor Republicans are trying everything they can to take him down, Mark Meadows is out fighting to grow the conservative movement. May 28th, 2024. I'm very pleased with President Trump's endorsement of great patriot John McGuire and denouncement of the backstabbing traitor Bob Good. Nancy Pelosi is a traitor. November 16th, the House GOP conference meeting this morning, there was a motion to remove Republican traitor Congressman Katko from his ranking position in Homeland Security. Blah, 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 blah. If you do a search on the word traitor in Marjorie Taylor Greene's Twitter feed, you will find dozens of examples of her labeling people traitor.
Mm-hmm.
Well, when it's labeled at her by the same group of people, her hero in this case, well, that's unwarranted, vicious attacks against me. That's a dog whistle to dangerous radicals. Buzz, is it only now a dangerous dog whistle to use the word traitor to describe somebody, or has it always been a dangerous dog whistle?
Well, it's always been. I mean, Eric Erickson had a tweet talking about recounting some of the treatment he and his family have received from the MAGA crowd over the years for being a quote unquote traitor. MAGA throws that word around a lot. And as you chronicle, Marjorie Taylor Greene has thrown it around a lot, but she's repented.
No,
she has reversed course. She says that no longer will she be engaging in this vicious politics anymore. It's terrible. We need to stop it. It's horrible.
Well, that's
Stop
interesting that you
being
say
mean
that
to
she's
each other.
repented um, because she went on to say that Donald Trump is a traitor.
Oh, that's right. She
Yeah.
did when he met with the Saudis.
Correct.
Uh,
She went on to say anybody who serves other countries after that meeting with the Saudis is a traitor. So she's not repented. She's not backing off of it. She's just fighting back, which is sort of her brand. But now she's fighting her hero, right? So several weeks ago, we talked about this on the podcast that Marjorie Taylor Greene was calling for a national divorce. And I don't think that this was the divorce that Marjorie Taylor Greene had in mind, but it certainly is one, isn't it?
Well, it sure seems like it. I'm a little surprised, honestly. I thought when Trump said he withdrew his support from her, that she would fall prostrate before him and beg for forgiveness, because her district loves Trump a lot. And they might, like her. We'll see, what happens, how this evolves over the next year. But I thought she would want to come back into the fold and just, kind of stop all this. But no, she is doubled and tripled and quadrupled down on all this stuff. So it's fascinating. It's fascinating. Can she? I guess what it really indicates is, and we're seeing this in a number of quarters of the right, the war for the post-Trump MAGA is in full flower.
Yeah.
All sorts of folks are lining up to be the successor to Donald Trump, and Marjorie Taylor Greene is right there in the thick of it.
We've seen this play out with Laura Loomer and Marjorie Taylor Greene going at each other. If you haven't read Grizzard Bot's take on the two of them fighting each other on Twitter, go back and find that article on Peach Pundit the blog, because it is hilarious. It's a hilarious take.
And we need to pray that Loomer does not move to Georgia to run for that seat, because
So that's the other thing too. I have a
I'm
message
not going
for
from
Laura
bad to
Loomer.
worse.
I have a message for Laura Loomer, right? You're right about Marjorie Taylor Greene. You have been all along. You've called that one correctly. You ain't from around here.
Yeah.
Don't move here. We've got plenty of good, solid conservatives who can run for that seat. And if they had the backing of Donald Trump, I have no doubt that they would win.
Mm-hmm.
And they're more serious-minded and they're more policy-minded. None of them are named Senator Colton Moore. But everybody else that has a shot at that, they are in line. You need not move here. Don't rearrange your life. You ain't from here.
Please.
Just don't. Don't do it. And
Loomer's a two-time loser anyway. She's run for Congress before, twice, I believe.
Yeah, I'm so tired of the circus politics. I'm so tired of it. It would become another circus event. The two of them going at each other in a primary. Are you just cruising for a bruising? You are welcoming the hurt. You are the person who gets punched in the face, smiles, and says, "Yes, please, may I have another?" No, we don't want that. We don't need it. We're going to be just fine without you. Stay where you are.
That might tear a hole in the space-time continuum if that fight took place. I mean, that would be.
It would definitely have some
bad.
gravity. It would be a little black hole sucking every bit of political news in with it. We would never talk about anything ever again. And it would get boring after a while, frankly.
Oh, it's already boring.
All right. That's Marjorie Taylor Greene. We have other drama that has been percolating. Last week, I told you all, I watched the state election board meeting, so you didn't have to. And I told you a little bit about what I saw from that meeting in last week's podcast. But there was this part of the meeting that also came up, and that it became apparent to the board during that meeting that the Secretary of State, Brad Raffesnperger, is no longer allowing his investigators who have been investigating cases of voter fraud or multiple voting or people voting outside their district, those types of cases. He's due in December to give the board a report, or to send the investigators there to give them the report. And several months ago, it became a point of contention around the scheduling of that meeting, because that's when they were available. So they were supposed to show up at the December meeting, and they are no longer coming. And there was a story in the AJC. You can go, and we'll link to it from the blog, that talks a little bit about it. But essentially, the gist is this state election board is nothing more than theater.
Yeah.
They are constantly sniping at each other. They're attacking the Secretary of State's office and their staff constantly. And you have a sitting member of the board whose husband is running to be the next Secretary of State, who is not shied away from using that platform as a campaign platform for her husband, as evidenced when she presented in front of the Blue Ribbon Study Committee on Election Processes a couple of months ago. She turned the podium around. I don't want to address the committee that I'm here to talk to. I'm here to talk to you, the people. It's theatrics is all it is.
Yes.
So, Buzz, have you ever seen anything like this, where a sitting agency or a constitutional office tells a board, you know what, we're not even going to play in you. We're going to send you the files. You can make your own decisions, but we're going to refrain from participating in the circus?
No, I haven't seen it reach this point. I mean, obviously there have been times when various offices, of constitutional officers, did not want to show up to legislative hearings and things of that nature. Didn't want to. Mostly, it's to try to avoid controversy in those kind of cases. They want to let the legislative process play out before they, without having to weigh in on a bill, because they have to follow the law, right? But this is just. I don't blame Secretary Raffesnperger for giving his investigators a break, because it is. You're right, Scott. It is a circus. It's just another circus. They're not accomplishing anything productive. They're not. Are they any closer to discovering who stole the 2020 election? No, they're not, because that's been investigated over and over and over again and beaten to death. But there they are, these three members, just continuing on to who knows where, tilting at windmills and blaming everybody else instead of doing what they should be doing, which is getting the state ready for another big election coming up next year.
Yeah. So I watch these meetings to try to pick out flakes of gold out of the ton of material that's in the back of the dump truck. And occasionally I do find, I mean, I have picked out some things from watching state election board meetings, specifically from people who come and give comment. Sometimes they'll have somebody come and testify to them, or do a presentation. It's not really testifying. It's more like, hey, I have this thing that I noticed. Can you check into it? And there are little flakes of gold like that you pluck out, and you need to go work on these things because they are serious. So there's a value to having a board like that. It's just right now I don't know if they understand what their purpose is. I think they think their purpose is to make political speeches and to score political points, instead of making sure everybody gets their ballot and it's counted accurately, and that their votes are going to go to the candidate that they want to see win, and making sure that those processes are followed. Like, that is a basic tenet reason they exist, and there's no focus on it. There just isn't. They're fighting each other more than they're doing that stuff.
Right.
But
alas.
We're going to take a quick break, because when we come back, we're going to turn the next segment into the Buzz Educates Us on Education segment.
Golden Retriever Rescue of Atlanta, GRRA, is an all-volunteer, tax-deductible charitable organization. They are dedicated to providing veterinary care, comprehensive evaluation, and foster and adoptive homes to golden and Labrador retrievers who are abandoned, mistreated, neglected, or left in shelters throughout Georgia. We encourage you to visit their website grra.com and help connect people and dogs that need each other in their lives. You truly can make this world a better place by helping find homes of gold for these golden-hearted pups.
Conservatives Concerned is a network of political and social conservatives who question the alignment of capital punishment with conservative principles and values. Our programs include educating conservatives about the failed death penalty system and mobilizing them to bring about its end. We come to this issue for a variety of reasons. Some believe that small government and the death penalty don't go together, especially when we compare the high costs of capital punishment to life without possibility of release. Some don't trust the state to get it right. We already know that some innocent people have been sentenced to death, and for others, it may already be too late. Some believe that the death penalty contradicts our values about protecting life. Find out more at conservativesconcerned.org.
It's all you, bud.
All right, Scott. So I wrote a post on the blog called "The Southern Surge is Leaving Georgia Behind." And a little bit of background here. If you've paid attention to education news in the last year, you have heard about what some people call the Mississippi Miracle, what others call the Southern Surge. Southern Surge is more accurate because it's what's happening is happening in a number of states, really 4 southern states is what we're talking about here. But Alabama, Louisiana, Tennessee, and Mississippi. And what these states have done a number of great things and related to K-12 education. And what's happened is their scores in the National Assessment of Education Proficiency, or NAEP, are surging pretty dramatically. These states are no longer the laughingstock of the nation when it comes to education proficiency. Their students are learning. Their students are learning how to read. Their students are doing better in math. And that is just going to open up all sorts of opportunity for the students of those states if they continue to do this, which it seems that they are. And, calling it a Mississippi Miracle, for example, is not really accurate because it's not a miracle. It is a decade, in Mississippi's case, of dedicated hard work, smart policy, alignment of mission and principle between the legislature, the K-12 education system, governors. All these folks have been involved in this, and it's paid off in a big way. And you can go read about some of this data in the blog post. But Georgia we're trying to do the same thing. And there's 2 legislative heroes we need to point out here, Representative Bethany Ballard and Senator Billy Hickman. They have taken the issue of literacy by the horns and have pushed through basically 3 pieces of legislation that have been tremendous. Bethany Ballard introduced a bill saying that Georgia's the way we teach reading in our early grades needs to be based on what's known as the science of reading. And that's, for us laymen, that's essentially phonics. Okay. Because the science has shown, the research has shown that that's the best way to teach kids how to read, not a bunch of these newfangled things that have swept through the education system. Senator Billy Hickman followed up with a piece of legislation to create the Georgia Literacy Council, which would oversee the implementation of this bill. Bethany Ballard came back this past session, with a bill because she was already starting to see that it wasn't going as well as we had hoped, the implementation phase of this. She came back with a bill that said you had to ban a teaching technique called 3Qing, which just blows my mind that this ever happened, Scott. But what 3Qing means is kids get 3 guesses as to what the word might be. They're not taught to read the word. They're taught to guess the word. And I know this is bizarre, but that's what has been used in many places across the country. The tide has turned. The pandemic opened the eyes of a lot of people. And they're like, you know what? This is just not working. We got to fix this. And there's kind of a movement across the country. Yeah.
So you talked about the Southern Surge and these states, Mississippi being the quote unquote miracle state here, not really a miracle. How are we doing compared to these other states?
Yeah, so we have the structure in place, right? And the Literacy Council, the Georgia Literacy Council, led by Scott Johnson, they said, here's a list of curriculum, what they call high quality instructional materials, or HQIMs, These are the kinds of things that Georgia needs to do. But the law said that they provide advice to the Georgia Department of Education, who will then make recommendations to the State Board of Education. We'll submit all this to the State Board of Education for final approval. And that's where the battle began. In that process of going back to DOE, a bunch of, shall we say, less than high quality instructional materials were added to the list. And I linked to
What are we talking here?
Substack
Sports
post.
Illustrated or Playboy?
Not quite that bad.
Oh, okay.
But just, Scott, materials that research against science research has shown are just not effective in teaching kids how to read. So why the heck would we want to do them? I mean, the simple thing and what the legislative intent was, if you talk to Bethany Ballard, you talk to Senator Hickman and all the other folks in the legislature who champion this, they were saying, all we need to do is just do exactly what Mississippi did. So wouldn't you then go adopt the kind of teaching materials that Tennessee and Louisiana and Mississippi and Alabama have done? But that's not what happened in Georgia. And so they created a list. State Board of Education kind of caved in and approved this list that included less than high quality materials. And the results came out last week of what did local districts choose, because they're allowed to choose from these lists. And many, many of them chose low quality instructional materials. And so the bottom line is, if you're expecting that we're going to see the same kinds of fantastic results for our students that you're seeing in these other 4 states that are surging, we're not going to see it because we have not followed through. We're not implementing this properly. So, Scott,
can I ask another question?
Why? That's the
Well, I mean, is the Department of Education led by Richard Woods being an obstructionist on this?
I wouldn't say obstruction. Obstruction in the sense that they have not chosen the easy path of looking and seeing what these other 4 states have done and said, let's just do that. We don't need to wrestle and debate this. Those things are working in those other states. Let's just do that. So, if you want to call that obstruction, if you want to call that, we're just going to do it our way, or stubbornness, or whatever.
It occurs to me that you have
morass.
Well, you have legislators who are writing law, telling them this is the direction that we want you to go, and they use their discretion that was given to them by the legislature to go in a different direction. If the intent of the legislation,
now it's all under the I'm sure what they would say is the DOE. It's all under the broad umbrella of the science of reading. But Scott, within that broad umbrella, there are things that work well and things that don't work well. And if you want to see a contrast, I point this out in the article. The Marietta City Schools chose wisely, and they are kicking butt. Their kids are learning how to read. Their kids are learning how to read in the early grades, like as the legislation intended. And there are other districts around the state that have chosen well. But if you're going to give people, the bottom line is, if you're going to give districts flexibility and an easy way out, they're going to take the easy way out. They're also dragging their feet on training their teachers for these new materials. So I don't know, Scott. It's not doing what we wanted it to do, what the legislature wanted it to do. And I think now action needs to be taken.
I'll just point this out.
If I were in the legislature, let's hold a hearing, man.
Hold a
let's
hearing.
Bring these folks in.
Yeah, and make Richard Woods refuse to come and talk. Make him uncomfortable. He's got a primary challenge or 2 or 3 or 4.
Several.
There's a bunch of people running against him. This is why.
Yeah.
During the legislative session, I wrote a blog post. Why is Will Wade, State Representative Will Wade, doing Richard Woods' job?
Yeah.
Why is Bethany Ballard doing Richard Woods' job? Why, when they're presented with the model that works, do they decide, nah, we don't want to do that? You are very nice to say that it's not necessarily them being obstructionists. I see it as obstructionist.
Look, it comes from the top. Sure. The buck stops with the leader.
Right.
Right. I've met a number of the folks who work in DOE. They're good, fine folks.
Look at you being all sweet and nice.
But leadership, the buck stops at the top.
Right. This Department of Education seems to be more about what's good for the teachers or easier for the teachers than it is doing what's right for the kids. And it's been that way since the day he walked in the door.
But
We've
Scott,
had
the teachers want their students to learn how to read.
that's the
And
juxtaposition that doesn't make sense
to give
me,
them the
though.
tools.
Right.
The legislature attempted to give them the tools to do that.
Right. Well, when
And the bureaucrats messed it up.
I misspoke when I said
superintendent messed it up.
teachers. It's not the teacher in the classroom.
Right.
Right. It's the administrators who have to make the decision in the call on this stuff. It's the leadership at the local level. They're not in the classroom anymore. They're trying to make every dollar go as far as it possibly can. And sometimes they go with the less expensive option, or in this case, just the one that doesn't have the science behind it to back it up.
Right. Or slick lobbyists come in and sell you a bill of goods. Do this.
Right. Right.
You know?
But when you have a whole new council on literacy under Scott Johnson's leadership, who's passionate and knowledgeable on these education issues, there are few people in Georgia who have the level of expertise that guy has, and he's leading that council, and he comes up with a list of recommendations, and then you just discard it. You're ignoring the will of the legislature in that case. You are being obstructionist to the will of the legislature in that case. You think you know better than them, and maybe you do. If the results backed you up, you could make that claim. But right now, the results are not backing you up. Other states are accelerating, and we're stuck in second gear.
Yeah. And Scott, this is how I ended my post. This will eventually, maybe sooner rather than later, what's going to happen? Businesses that want to move to the South are going to stop looking at Georgia, and they're going to go to these other states because they're going to have a better educated workforce.
Right.
Economic development and jobs are going to flow into those states, and Florida too, because Florida is way ahead of all of them, right? They're going to flow to those states and not to us. And how long can we maintain we love to, and rightfully so, we love to brag about being the best state for business. If we are falling behind further and further behind these other states, it's going to be a real problem, Scott. So we've got an election coming up.
Sure. I just remember during my time in the legislature, when I was in the legislature, the complaints about Richard Woods were everywhere, and I didn't know him. Right. And I only had one real interaction with his staff, and it was over a bill that I had that said, once you have qualified for the special needs scholarship, you get to keep that. If you do a year of homeschool, you're still eligible. You don't have to go back into a public school. If you could have flexibility. Once you did your year, you were qualified for the special needs scholarship. He fought me on it. Mm-hmm. He fought me on it. It's now the law. Yeah. But it's so stupid that he fought me on it, because it was like 3,500 kids or some ridiculously low number. And you're going to bankrupt the classroom. Like, no. Yeah. You don't worry about how much we're funding QBE, or, just when we get to 100% of funding QBE, y'all stop complaining about how much money you're getting, because you're getting every penny that the law requires that you get. When we start investing extra money into education, that's above and beyond. So stop with this nonsense. But look, it's been a problem for ages. I remember there was a bill a while back to completely strip him of almost every authority and power that he had. And
there's
at the time,
bill
I
this
voted
last
against
session
it.
To, and maybe we should have taken Governor Perdue's advice and made that an appointed position instead of an elected one. There was a bill this last legislature session to do just that. Maybe
I think it's probably time. We're learning now that regardless of how many things that the legislature tries to do to improve the lives of our children, somebody can come along and torpedo it. And that's what he's been doing. And I will be voting for somebody else in that election that you mentioned. It will not be Richard Woods in the primary for my household. We will be voting for somebody else. So if you're one of those other candidates, here's a family of votes that are up for.
I got a text from one of them just moments ago, Scott. Wanted to chat.
There you go.
But look, it's not just it's this. The superintendent's a very important job. We got primaries. Democrats are going to field a candidate as well. But also, Scott, every candidate for governor, what are we going to do about this? Every candidate for lieutenant governor, what are we going to do about this? Every candidate for the legislature. The entire legislature is up for election next year. They all talk about education. They all campaign on education. What are we going to do about this? Are we going to sit still? Are we going to fall behind?
And their
We gotta
answer
fix
to that question is meaningless if you have a Georgia Department of Education that doesn't actually implement
True.
it the way it's supposed to be
No,
done.
no, that's true. Absolutely. You
So,
got to time to wrestle that power back and fix it.
Exactly. What other things happened in education while you're down in New Orleans? I saw Jeb ! Say something nice about Governor Kemp.
Yeah. So Governor Jeb Bush, as you all know, the founder of the Excel in Ed organization that hosts annually what's known as the National Summit on Education. And it's a great conference. It's there are about 30 Georgians there, by the way, Scott. A number of
Affectionately called
legislators.
Jeb Fest, right? I mean,
affectionately called Jeb Fest, yes. And Governor Jeb comes out at the opening plenary session and makes some remarks, and then he answers some questions and so forth. And during that, he didn't mention it by name, but he mentioned the program. He didn't mention Governor Kemp by name, but he mentioned that Georgia has done something unique in the country and that every state should do the same. And that is Governor Kemp's Georgia Match program. And that's a program where every high school senior, every graduating senior receives a letter saying, here are the colleges and universities and technical colleges in the state of Georgia that, based upon your grades and your performance in high school, you are eligible to enroll in, and those fees are waived. And so a student can apply to any one of those schools that they want to, and they know which ones they're qualified for. And what this is among the many things that this is allowed to take place is that a lot more kids who are thinking, who thought that college might not be for them, are thinking, I can do this because here's all these schools that will accept me. The other thing is, I was talking with a gentleman at the Department of Ed while we were at the conference, and he said school counselors now can really focus on, okay, here's the school. They don't have to wonder which school is this student eligible, could get into. They are able to hone in and say, okay, what do you want to study? Let's look at these different schools and let's figure out which one might be the best one for you. It's not always UGA. It's not always Georgia Tech. Those two schools are loaded. They have way more applicants than they can handle. But all the other schools, there's a lot of other good schools. Georgia College and State University down in Millsville, very good school. Georgia Southern, Kennesaw, Georgia State.
Hooty hoo.
All sorts of West Georgia, they all have programs that are unique. And so it is it was cool to see Georgia get praised for Jeb. These are teachers and educators and policymakers from all 50 states, 1,500 of them there. And they all heard Governor Bush say, you guys should do something that Georgia did. And on education matters, that doesn't happen very often. So kudos to Governor Kemp, to all those in the legislature, and into the Board of Regents and the technical college system, and who all rallied around and are making this thing work. It's a good thing.
It's a great program, and one that I hope more kids are using every year, because we might see more kids placed in a school that's better for them. If you want to go be a nurse, I don't think there's any better place than Kennesaw State. And you might be thinking, oh, I've got to be a Bulldog, the red and black, and you're watching college football. But Kennesaw State's probably the better match for you. You're going to come out with a degree, you're going to have a job, and you're going to go to work as soon as you want after graduation. So fantastic, great news. I always love when you hear Jeb ! Give kudos to Governor Kemp.
Yeah.
Talk about other weird alliances happening along the Georgia political landscape. I have said recently, I think I have a new favorite Democrat, or I might finally have a favorite Democrat, and that was in relation to Senator John Fetterman, who, when he fell on his face having a medical episode and had to have treatment in a hospital, tweeted out that if you thought my face was ugly before, wait till you see it now. And he's got stitches. And it looks bad. It was a bad fall. Yes. So prayers for him.
Glad he's on the mend.
But that sort of self-deprecating humor is something I'm drawn to. And plus, he's been willing to hold his own party accountable for their darker demons, if you will. But here in Georgia, somebody else is sort of fitting the role of Senator Fetterman, and that's State Representative Esther Panitch, Democrat from Sandy Springs, represents a huge portion of Sandy Springs, and the mayor's race there has gone to a runoff.
Mm-hmm.
Enter my plea to end runoffs. Runoffs are stupid. But in that race, Rusty Paul, who at one point in time served as the chairman of the Georgia Republican Party. So even though municipal races in Georgia are nonpartisan, we know that Rusty Paul has a Republican background. You don't serve as chairman of Georgia Republican Party without it. I don't know. He might be considered a rhino these days. Who knows?
Well, aren't we all?
Welcome to the club, Mayor Paul. But what was interesting is that over the last day or two, Esther Panitch has endorsed Rusty Paul for her reelect against a young man named Dante Carter, who has been endorsed by League of Conservation Voters, as well as the
Stacey
one
Abrams.
self-described socialist, Gabriel Sanchez, which caused Representative Panitch to tweet, "I will not support a Democrat who welcomes the anti-Semitic DSA endorsement." That's Democratic Socialists of America. Screenshots and comments. Democrat Esther Panitch backs former GOP chair for Sandy Springs mayor. That's her own tweet.
Yes.
Buzz, what's your take on all this?
Well, Scott, a couple weeks ago, several weeks in a row, we talked about the internecine fight within the Republican Party over the Groypers and Fuentes and the rise of anti-Semitism on the right. And a lot of our fellow right-wingers have risen up to say, no, thanks. Don't want any part of it. And it's encouraging to me to see this happen among the Democrats. Esther Panitch, I've had a lot of respect for her since the time she got in the legislature. Political, we don't agree on much. She ain't a moderate Democrat. Okay, she's a good liberal, and she's it's encouraging to see her using her platform to take a stand and say this should not be tolerated in the Democratic Party either. Now, this Dante Carter fellow was pushing back and saying, I've never, I stand with Jewish people. I stand against all kinds of hate. But I noticed just a quick glance through, maybe I'm wrong, but I didn't see him use the word anti-Semitism, that he stood against anti-Semitism. He stands against hate, and it's kind of in a generic, I stand against all kinds of hate. But what is of concern at this moment in history is not just hate. It's a specific type of hate directed at Jewish people. And that's what Representative Panitch is looking for and pointing out. And yes, she's correct. The Democratic Socialists of America, they are behind the squad. They are the ones that elect. They are the energy behind the squad that are filled with anti-Semitic folks in Congress there. Thankfully, they're a small group. They were the driving energy behind Zoran Mondami getting elected as mayor of New York City. They're definitely a force to be reckoned with within the Democratic Party. And of course, Gabriel Sanchez, that you mentioned earlier, is a Democratic socialist who knocked off another good liberal Democrat in Representative Terry Eludes. So
yeah, Terry Eludes is definitely a liberal. That's no question about it.
So it's right. It's a battle between the liberal and the far left. And kudos to Representative Panitch for planting her flag and standing firm and saying, no, this has to stop in her party.
Representative Panitch told the AJC that Paul has, quote, consistently stood with the Jewish community and directly confronted rising anti-Semitism. He understands that leadership means having the moral courage to name the threats facing specific communities, not papering over them with generalities. And that's the type of support that will earn you an endorsement from a Democrat if you're a Republican. If you are showing that you care about these issues that are important to people like Representative Panitch in the Jewish community. Look, we live in a time where a lot of the old tropes that we thought were squashed and were relegated to the dustbin of history have reared their ugly head. And it's happened in both sides. And this isn't an excuse. This isn't both. It happens on both sides, and therefore it's okay. This is, we have to, both of our parties have to recognize this threat from within our own organizations and do everything we can to push back and fight against it. So I also will offer kudos to Representative Panitch. I'm sure it's going to come with political blowback for her. And that if somehow Mayor Paul wins, that there will be a budding relationship of trust between the two of them moving forward that will only benefit the people of Sandy Springs.
Right. And it is a nonpartisan race, right? So while Rusty Paul may personally be a Republican, he functions as in a nonpartisan fashion because that's what the job requires.
Yes,
so
very much so. Moving on to other legislative matters, the Senate has been having study committee hearings all summer long, looking for ways to eliminate the state income tax. And they have had hours and hours of meetings at this point. There was some news that broke because the Georgia Budget and Policy Institute, or GBPI, which is a left-wing think tank here in Georgia, always telling us we weren't spending enough money on everything. When I was in the legislature, that's what I remember them as. They would give us a policy book. Here's all the things that you're not funding at the beginning of every legislative session. Okay, yeah, that's if your starting point is more.
There's never enough.
It's never enough, right? Because the goalposts always move. So Georgia Public Policy came out, or Georgia Budget Policy Institute came out with a press release saying if the state income tax is eliminated, the sales tax would have to go to 11%. Buzz, give me your take, and then I'm going to give the audience a bit of a warning about jumping to conclusions.
Well, I'll tell a quick story that when I was running in 2010 for the legislative seat, at that time, then Governor Perdue had put together a blue ribbon panel he called to take a look at Georgia's tax system. And I was all, being a geeky nerd, I went to a bunch of their meetings and heard a bunch of their hearings. And the deal was they were going to issue a report and then turn that into legislation that would be introduced into the House. And what happened was they came up with a plan. So, all right, we need to eliminate a bunch of the special sales tax exemptions that we have and cut the income tax down to 3% and cut the corporate income tax down to 3%. And you pay for that by eliminating a bunch of the special tax exemptions. And when the bill came to the Senate, I don't even know that it got a hearing. It was introduced in the Ways and Means Committee, which technically meant the promise of the bill that a bill would be introduced, and it died a vicious and bloody death because behind every one of those special tax breaks is a lobbyist and a constituency that doesn't want those things touched. And there was all sorts of misinformation. We got bombarded with emails from the Boy Scouts and the Girl Scouts. How dare you try to tax Girl Scout cookies and Boy Scouts popcorn, which was never in the bill and never contemplated, but all sorts of misinformation and just beat it down to death. So I think the Bible tells us there's nothing new under the sun. And so I'm not surprised that the GPPI is trying to scare people already, but it all comes down to what sort of special sales tax breaks are we going to trim away, because we got a bunch of them. At that time, there was like 130, and I think there's even more now. So we got a lot of them.
Yeah, and this is the warning, right? Georgia Budget and Policy Institute put together this report without seeing the actual proposal. There's been no proposal. There's no legislation drawn.
Right.
And so one of the traps, if you're ever thinking about running for office, you'll get asked, what do you think about this idea that does X, Y, Z? And it could be anything.
Right.
And the proper way to answer that question is, I'm supportive of the concept of doing X, Y, Z, but the devil's in the details. We have to look at the proposal and the legislation. So don't hold me to a vote on something I haven't seen yet. I have to look at
Right, and
every
that's-
piece of legislation independently to make a determination if this is what I want to support or not.
And that's not a cop-out. I mean, that's, for me, I learned that the hard way. That's not a cop-out. That's wise decision-making. Right? Let me read the bill. Right.
Right. Let me read the bill so that I can actually tell you how I'm going to vote. Because what will happen is, oh, I support XYZ, right? And then the bill comes along that purports to do XYZ and is being reported that it does XYZ. But you are now committed to voting for it regardless of what's in it. Georgia Budget and Policy Institute has no idea what's in the legislation because it hasn't been written yet. So
Right.
you cannot make an assumption that the sales tax has to go to 11% until you see what they're going to do to make the books balance. One of the things is what Buzz just told you, eliminating special interest tax breaks and making the tax code uniform for everybody. Now, as Buzz pointed out, he's absolutely right. Every single one of those is going to have a lobbyist telling everybody in the legislature, you can't get rid of this special interest tax break because that will mean that my employer who's paying me to tell you this is going to have to cut jobs, and which means
Right.
that your constituents are going to find themselves on the unemployment line. It'll be fear, uncertainty, and doubt for days.
Mhm.
Don't make your decision on whether or not you're going to support this and on anything that you hear before the bill is actually written. That's my
Yep.
warning. That's my bit of knowledge, my wisdom to impart on you, the audience. Take a breath. Don't make any decisions now. Wait for them to come out with something. These senators have been working on this so hard that whatever they come up with is going to be a very serious solution. And it's not going to be just in the state income tax. They're going to have to do other things. So
Mhm.
let's just wait for that. Okay. Can we just
Well-
have a moment of sanity and just say, well, we're gonna actually make our decision based upon the evidence in front of us instead of some concept some lefty think tank comes up with.
I mean, another interesting thing about this, Scott, this is right now being driven, by the Senate, by the Lieutenant Governor, and by the Senate Appropriations Chair, Blake Tillery. I asked one of our friends, a House member, what they thought of this, and the immediate reply was, all tax legislation and spending legislation needs to start in the House. So,
so now he's a constitutionalist, whoever that is.
So yeah, it'd be interesting to see. Now, I'm sure there are House members who are gung ho about the idea of eliminating the tax. I know there were. Emory Donoghue would introduce numerous times, introduce a
Fair tax.
Fair tax bill. So there are fans, but you're gonna have to get one of those folks to drop the bill.
Right. And here's the other thing too, is of the Republicans that I've talked to, there isn't the same zeal for this tax proposal as there is property tax relief.
Yeah.
There seems to be in the House a different mindset that property tax relief would lead to direct affordability concerns and benefit more people.
I'm for
I don't
both,
know if
by
you
the
have
way.
to- What's that?
Yeah, I'm for
what?
both.
Why not? Why not? If our starting
I'm not
point
saying
is
eliminate
more,
them all. You can't. You can't eliminate all the taxes, right?
when it comes to lowering taxes, Buzz and I's starting point is do it more.
yes, yes, exactly.
Oh, you lowered taxes? Do it more.
Yes, yeah.
And I have it on good authority. That's a perfectly reasonable starting position every single time.
Well, it used to be. I mean, now you got to be for tariffs and all this kind of stuff, and for that's a whole
Shut
other
your dirty
subject,
mouth.
so.
Just shut it.
Just another way we're rhinos, Scott. So.
Yeah, I guess so. It is the week before Thanksgiving as we record this, which means that next week we're going to take the week off so we can be with family. There is no time in the schedule next week for either of us to sit here for an hour and talk with you all. I know that makes you sad. It makes us sad too. But I thought it would be awesome if we just took a moment and reflected a little bit, Buzz, on what are we thankful for in the world of Georgia politics. Obviously, we'll take off all the obvious ones: our family, the fact that we live in the best country in the world, in the best state in the world, and both live in the best city in the best state in the world. Yeah, we'll take all that off the table. Georgia politics wise, what are you thankful for?
Well, I know, on this policy, it's kind of the nature of doing a podcast and being, offering our opinions on things. It's easy to get caught up in the negative and focus on, bad news. We did some of that tonight, but we do every podcast because we have to, that's part of our job, right, Jay? We have to point out stuff, right? But, we live in a pretty good state. We have pretty good leadership in this state. We have some pretty smart, good, dedicated people who love this state on both sides of the aisle, who are there in the legislature and in their various positions across this state, trying to do the right thing and trying to do good by their constituents and follow the law and follow the Constitution and the spirit of this state. And so I'm thankful for that. It's easy, to get down and to, let the bad things just ruin everything. But there's still a heck of a lot of good stuff going on in our state. We got challenges, of course we do, but we also got smart people and dedicated people who are trying to fix those problems. So I'll start with that.
So I'm going to start by thanking you, the audience. I'm really grateful for you because this thing continues to grow and inexplicably.
Yeah.
We're not promoting it. We're not out there telling everybody, come listen to us. We're not advertising at all. It's growing because of you. And for every person that recommends this to one of their friends, I'm thankful for you because it means that we're touching on something here, that the work that we're doing here, it's fun for us. It started as a hobby. It still is very much a hobby. It's never going to pay our bills for sure. But it means that the way that Buzz and I see the role of government still matters to a significant portion of the population of the state. So thank you for listening. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for liking and commenting. If you comment, obviously, you'll be entered into the drawing to get a T-shirt like the one I'm wearing. It won't fail. Buzz made fun of me because you accidentally misspelled the word because.
I didn't get the joke. So.
No, but when I'm walking down the grocery aisle, I get stopped. People laugh. Where'd you get that shirt? That is hilarious. So, yeah. So you can check it out at the merch shop. But I'm going to go with one more here, and that is last year around this time, I was engaged in a lawsuit that ended up in the state Supreme Court, and I'm really thankful for all of the conservative-minded people whose loyalty is to the Constitution and things like separation of powers, because I got untold. It has to be over 100 comments from currently elected Republicans thanking me for being that guy to stand up against the state election board, which was majority Republican, and ended up having to sue, be in legal conflict with my own party. But I'm really thankful to everybody over the last year who took time out of their day to send a text, drop an email, or call me and thank me, because it meant that I was being representative of you. And it meant that I was doing the right thing. And it gave me that reassurance that I wasn't alone. That while I was willing to stand up and be the tip of the spear, there was a whole spear behind me. And every single one of you folks who reached out that way, I just want to take this moment at this time where we give thanks to you for being so kind and thoughtful during that whole experience, which I do not recommend to anyone. Thank you for the support.
Hear, hear. Ditto, as Russia's fans used to say.
You've been listening to Peach Pundit, the podcast, which is brought to you by our Patreons. Again, head on over to patreon.com/peachpundit and sign up for one of those tiers today. We'll get you added to the single chat. You can come join the party. These are the people who rock, the people who reach into their pocket just $5 a month or more in some cases. We've got somebody named Here's Johnny in the background chatting with us, watching the show live. You can do that at the $10 level too. They are two anonymous folks who wanted us to not tell you their names. Actually, we have 3 of them now. And the third wants you to learn more about the Alzheimer's Association. We also have Greer Howard, Amy Davis, Sergio Ortega, Kenyatta Mitchell, Eric Johnson, Lawton Sack, Ken Pullen, Bethany Ballard, Justin Wright, Sam Thomas, Jordan Reed, Shannon Ferguson, Jeff Cobble, Hank Burnham, Ryan Purvis, James Hall, Colin Martin, Tony West, and our friends at Americans for Prosperity, Stuart Wilkinson, Mike Buchert, Bo Brannon, Ryan Graham, John Vestal, Reed Powell, Emmanuel Hernandez, Jason Bankston, Harrison Edwards, Daniel Shaver, Jacqueline Harn. Thank you, each and every one of you, for being a person who rocks. We couldn't do this without you. You've been listening to Peach Pundit, the podcast. For Buzz Brockway, I'm Scott Turner. Everything at Peach Pundit is owned and published by me, Scott Turner. The music that you hear at the beginning is written and performed by Jason Pye. Thank you. Go be thankful, and we'll catch you next time.
Go Jackets. Beat the Panthers.